There is a question that comes up naturally when you're building something new. It can happen in a casual conversation, during a call, or even through a short message. Someone looks at you and asks, "So, what exactly are you doing?" Most people see this as a moment where they need to explain themselves. In reality, it's often the first sign that the other person has already noticed a change and wants to understand it better. What do you do with this moment makes a difference. This question usually doesn't come out of curiosity alone. People asked it because something caught their attention. Maybe the way you talk has changed. Maybe your focus feels different. Maybe they sense that you are working towards something. So when someone asks what you are doing, they are not asking for a presentation. They are checking whether this is something worth exploring further. Understanding that changes how you respond. There are a few reactions that often shut the conversation down without people realizing it. One is talking too long and trying to cover every detail at once. Another is switching into technical language that only makes sense inside the industry. Sometimes people also try to justify what they are doing instead of simply explaining it, which signals insecurity even when none is intended. None of these reactions come from bad intentions, but they usually overload the moment and make the other person step back instead of leaning in. A calm and grounded answer works better than a detailed explanation. You can briefly describe that you're building something alongside your current life, learning how a long-term business model works, and focusing on developing new skills. Then you pause. That pause matters. It gives the other person room to react instead of feeling guided into a direction they didn't choose. If the other person responds with interest, the next step is not to continue explaining. It's to shift the focus gently back to them. You can ask how things are going in their work or what they are currently focused on. This keeps the conversation balanced and helps you understand whether there is any real overlap between what you are building and where they are in life. At this stage, you are not qualifying, you are listening. Interest doesn't always sound enthusiastic. Sometimes it shows up as curiosity, sometimes as frustration, sometimes as thoughtful questions. Your job is not to label or interpret too much, but to notice whether the conversation naturally deepens or stays on the surface. Both outcomes are valuable because they give you clarity. When there is a clear connection between what you're building and what the other person shares, you can acknowledge it calmly. You don't need to convince or persuade. You can simply mention that what you are working on touches similar themes and that it might be worth continuing the conversation at another time. This keeps everything respectful and allows the other person to decide how far they want to go. One part that's often overlooked is what happens after the conversation ends. A simple way to handle this is to decide on the follow-up while the conversation is still fresh. Ask yourself whether the exchange showed curiosity, neutrality, or no real interest. When there was curiosity, a follow-up within a few days makes sense. It can be short and reference to conversation without introducing anything new. When the response was neutral, it's usually better to let some time pass and keep the relationship normal instead of pushing another message. Quick side note, if you're serious about building network marketing with clarity, structure, and a long-term perspective, my book Moonshot lays the foundation for how to think and operate in this profession. It's about building something real over time, not chasing short-term results. You'll find the link below. All right. Let's continue. Handling the conversation this way keeps things open and balanced. You stay calm. The other person feels no pressure, and you get a clear sense of whether there is alignment or not. Over time, this approach saves energy and leads to conversations that feel natural instead of forced. So let's quickly recap this from a practical perspective. When someone asks what you're doing, the goal is not to explain your business, but to test interest without influencing the outcome. A short answer followed by a pause allows you to observe the reaction instead of creating it. Based on that reaction, you can decide whether the conversation should continue, shift direction, or end naturally. This approach turns the question into a simple qualification step instead of presentation moment. Alright, that's pretty much it for today. Thanks for taking the time to watch this all the way through. I really appreciate it. If this helped you think differently about those conversations, then feel free to stick around by subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you know someone who keeps getting stuck when the question comes up, just send this video to them. It might help more than you think. Thanks again for being here, and I'll see you on the next one.